What if I told you that you could make your tattoos look much more realistic by focusing on just one thing? Today, I'm not only going to show you how I tattoo a realistic rose, I'll also reveal a single trick to instantly improve your results. And by the end, you'll understand why so many tattoo artists keep making the same mistake. Before you try this at home, I'd recommend watching the whole video first, so you can better understand my thought process. For those of you who want to follow along, I've linked the stencil and the finished design in the video description. So you know the size I'm working with. The tattoo has a diameter of about 8 centimeters. Here's how I make my gray wash. I use dynamic ink, and the tattoo machine is from Dragonhawk. You'll find all the products I use in the video description. With my code fanitattoo, you'll save 10% and support me at the same time. I'm starting here with a 3-round liner, eight volts, a stroke of 4.2 millimeters, and I let the needle stick out of the cartridge by about 4 millimeters. To help the color wipe away more easily, I put a little Vaseline on the fake skin. I'm using the second darkest gray tone here and outlining all the leaves with it. I trace the stencil very simply. In my opinion, not every detail needs to be included in the stencil. Since the reference image is always in view, it's no problem for me to see and incorporate details as I go. So, by not making the stencil too detailed, we save time in the preparation stage without changing the final result. I'm still using the second darkest gray tone for these lines, carefully considering which lines in the rose should be dark. Keep in mind these lines all need to be blended later. It's better to have too few dark lines than too many. In the center of the rose, the petals are so small that I'll go ahead and shade them directly with the thin needle. By thinking about these things during the tattooing process, I save myself from having to switch needles later, because we're working systematically, not just randomly tattooing. Here's what the progress should look like so far. All the lines you see were done in dark gray. With the lightest gray tone, I now outline the rest of the lines. The same rule applies, better too light than too dark. The rose wouldn't look realistic in the end if there were too many visible lines. Here's the progress so far. The light gray and dark gray lines are done. Now for my favorite part, shading. For this, I use a 13 soft edge Magnum needle, 8 volts, and a stroke of 3.3 millimeters. I'm using pure black for these shades, because I didn't use black for the lines earlier, but rather the second darkest gray tone. These lines blend much more easily now. With the Magnum needle, you can work perfectly along straight lines. For the outer zigzag edges, I don't work too close to the edges. A thinner needle is better for those later. It would be a waste of time to try to fill in those small tips with such a large needle. Plus, I might go past the lines, and a mistake like that couldn't be fixed. The machine settings remain the same, but I'm now using a 7-round liner. This needle is perfect for the next step. The design is only 8 centimeters in size. If it were much larger, I would logically use a bigger needle for it, like a 9-round shader. Once we've done this for all the leaves, Our progress should look like this. For the large shaded areas in the rose, I'm again using a 13 soft edge needle. Here too, I would use a bigger needle if the design were larger. This is a very common beginner mistake, thinking that using small needles will automatically give you better and finer work. But that's not true. It's actually much easier to shade large areas with a large needle. For such a small design, I'm sure many of you would have initially guessed that you should use a 7 or 9 soft edge Magnum for this. But that would just take longer, and the final result wouldn't be any better. Trust the work process. It's not important for the design to look perfect at this stage. After all, there are still many more steps to come. With this needle, I'm focusing exclusively on the larger areas that need to be shaded. I'll draw this out in detail for you as well. This way, you can clearly see what I'm paying attention to when I'm working with this needle. As we saw with the leaves, I'm now using a thinner needle again, in this case, the 7 round liner, to work cleanly along the edges everywhere. The reason I'm showing this to you in such detail is because I want you to understand the work process and not just copy every single step. Once you understand this, you can apply it to any design. To further show you how pleasant it is to work with large needles, we're now going to use an even larger one. In this case, a 15 soft edge Magnum. Mainly, I'm using the second lightest gray tone to connect the remaining shaded areas. If I want something even lighter, of course, I can dip my needle into the lightest gray tone. When shading with such a large needle, I don't need to worry about the direction of the shading. This needle isn't meant for creating structure. It's meant to create soft gradients, so I can shade the leaves in the opposite direction as well. Here I've marked in red the direction the structure should go, and in green I've shown what I mean by shading in the opposite direction. In this case, that's totally fine. For the next step, I'm using a 7 round liner. At the beginning of the video, I mentioned that to make our design look realistic, one important thing is still missing. The one trick I was talking about from the start is that realistic tattoos only truly come to life when you take the time to work in lots of details. These fine details don't just add depth and realism, they also make the tattoo truly special. Many people underestimate this. They want to be done quickly or think it's enough to just have the basic shape. But this is exactly where the difference lies. Patience and a love of detail make your tattoos not just cleaner, but also more impressive. It's really important here to pay attention to the natural structure of the rose. Especially on real skin, it takes the color like a magnet if the skin has already been punctured once. In this case, very little pressure is needed to place the details. On fake skin, you'll notice this too, though not as strongly. Again, it's better to go too light rather than too dark. We don't want lines, just a bit of texture. Now you can watch how the design comes to life, getting a beautiful, realistic look. This is definitely one of the most important steps to consider if you want to create high-quality tattoos. I'd like to share another thought with you. I've often wondered, what's the secret behind the work of other tattoo artists that impresses me so much? Time and again, I've watched closely and realized that the secret is often not so mysterious after all. They simply take an incredible amount of time for every step of their work and carefully refine every little detail. And that's where success usually lies. It's the love for detail. I'm also using a 7 round liner for the white. Before using it, it's very important to thoroughly clean the needle in distilled water so the white really shines. I'd like to take a moment to thank all my channel members and subscribers. Thank you for your amazing support. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, I'd really appreciate it if you gave it a free subscription and a like. I know it's fun to tattoo with white, but don't overdo it here. Otherwise, the whole thing can end up looking overloaded. Less is more in this case. This is how the final result looks. If you want to learn how I tattoo the ultimate discipline, realistic portraits, I've made an online course with many hours of follow-along videos, tutorials, and much more. If you're interested, check out this video here.